Hi guys, so let's now take a look at oligopolies and the study of game theory. Right, so game theory is a really useful model for helping us to understand the interactions and interdependence between different firms within a market. We know that oligopolies are highly interdependent, and that simply means, you'll recall, that one firm's actions will have repercussions for other firms. Okay, so let's take a look. So game theory, the study of strategic interaction where players' decisions are interdependent upon others. Okay, so that simply means the decisions of Adidas will have implications for Nike. Meanwhile, the decisions of Airbus will also have implications for Boeing, for instance. Okay, now I've drawn out a very simple game theory matrix down here, and you can see that for firm A, if I just highlight firm A as in blue here, so we've got firm A's potential choices that they can undertake, either a high price or an unchanged price. Meanwhile, we've got firm B. So firm B, meanwhile, well, they can either opt for a high price or an unchanged price. Okay, so let's run through the options available for A here. Okay, and let's consider A represents Airbus. That's nice and straightforward, whereas B represents Boeing. Okay, so Airbus can either opt for high price or they can go for an unchanged price. Okay, so those are the options available to them. With a high price, well, they either get an outcome of 10 or -4. Okay, so 10 or -4. Now, with an unchanged price, however, they're guaranteed to make a profit of either 12 or 4. So what is likely to be their dominant strategy here? And this is where a single strategy is best for a player, regardless of the decisions of others. Well, what's the best option here? Well, clearly it's going to be the unchanged price, because it guarantees a level of profitability for Airbus in this instance. If we run through the example for Boeing, you can see I've used the same figures for Boeing here as well, really reflecting the fact that perhaps their market share is likely to be very similar here. Now we've got 12 and 4, 10 and -4. Okay, so again, 12 and 4 is going to be that dominant strategy for Boeing, of course. Right, so in a competitive oligopoly, the outcome that we would actually derive would be this point here. So this would be a competitive market outcome. Now, what's also significant about this is that we've got unchanged price. Well, this feeds through to what's known as, of course, price stability. And within that model of price stability that we looked at, which was, of course, the kink demand curve theory of oligopoly, well, this entirely reinforces why firms will actually choose to opt for non-price competition through differentiation, and they won't change to actually raise their prices, as we saw with that kink nature of the demand curve. And you'll remember there, when there's a price rise, other firms will not follow. So let's say, for instance, that Airbus raises the price, whereas B, Boeing, actually keeps the price unchanged. Well, the outcome here is -4 for Airbus and 12 for Boeing. So Boeing would do far better. So there is no incentive to actually raise the price in such an instance. Okay, so we've got price stability reinforced here. Now, what's also interesting about this point is that this would become a stable equilibrium. Why would it become a stable equilibrium? Well, if we just think about Airbus's decisions here, if they know that Boeing are going to continue not to change their prices, well, what incentive do they actually have to actually raise their price? Is there an incentive? No, there isn't. And as such, there is no credible threat here. There is no credible threat to deviate from this outcome point. So what we also have here is a very stable market equilibrium, which isn't necessarily the best outcome for the firm, but it's the best outcome for the firm given the actions of the other firm. And this is where we come onto the Nash Equilibrium. Okay, so here no participant can gain from a change of strategies if the strategies of others remain unchanged. So let's just reiterate that. Now for Boeing, if Boeing think, oh well, let's raise the price, let's see if we can make more of a profit by raising the price. So Boeing opt to raise the price, we can see they lose out, whereas Airbus would gain significantly. So this is also a Nash equilibrium. Okay, so that's a really powerful example there. So it's well worth remembering a model like this in case you face a oligopolies essay. Now, if we then have this outcome level, so we've got this outcome point here. Well, what can we focus on here? Well, we've got high price. We can see that this is our competitive outcome. So this would be our formal collusive outcome. So this would be formal collusion taking place right here. Now, what's interesting about this is that we know cartel agreements can be very unstable because there can be incentive to actually raise output levels and thereby increase profits. Okay, yes, that would reduce the prices slightly, but it would mean that given firm would actually make more profits. Okay, so if Airbus and Boeing got together and actually said, right, let's agree on a particular price, okay, and let's raise it together, then yeah, they would be able to achieve this outcome, 10 and 10. But it's likely that this would only be a short-term phenomenon. So they would only achieve this outcome level in the short term. It's not a stable equilibrium. It is unstable. We saw this was a nice stable equilibrium with no incentive to move away. Here, there is what's known as a credible threat to deviate from this cartel or formal collusion strategy. Okay, so there is a credible threat here. Why is there a credible threat? Well, if we look at Airbus, let's say that in the next period they choose to actually keep their price unchanged, but they don't tell Boeing this. They've got 10 and they move on to 12. So there is a credible threat for them to actually profit further from actually breaking that cartel agreement. Moreover, we can also see that that would be very damaging to Boeing. Likewise, Boeing also have that temptation of moving from 10 through to 12 there. Okay, so this is a lovely model to remember. It's relatively straightforward and it gives you loads of points of analysis there to use. Okay, and it means that you can bring in this Nash equilibrium that we've got here. Okay, you can bring in the competitive market outcome, refer it back to kink demand curve theory of price stability, and then we can look at that formal collusive agreement there and how unstable that is likely to be. So in the longer term overall, we can see that we are going to revert to that competitive market outcome if this truly is a competitive oligopoly. If it's not well regulated, then it's a possibility that that could be a longer term outcome, possible, but there always remains that credible threat. All right, great stuff. Thanks, guys.